Good evening, parents, and I'm sure a significant number of students watching as well. It's great to have you with us on this information evening for the Year 8 Rewards trip to Paris. A little bit of background as to why we run this trip. It's really important to give the students a sense of achievement at the end of lower school and show them that we really appreciate the work that they've done, especially with all the disruption that they've had over the last couple of years. And it's a really great opportunity for us to send a significant number of students abroad, which, you know, a significant number of students won't have been able to do for a long time. And maybe some students haven't had the opportunity to go to France or to Paris before. So we're really excited to give you the information about how this trip is going to run. I am joined tonight by my able helpers. I have Mr. Wilson, the head of learning for Year 8. I have Miss Evans, who is both the Director of Languages and the Deputy Head of Lower School, who will be answering questions in the chat. And I also have Mr. Harding, the Deputy Head, who has responsibility for the pastoral programme at Kingsdale Foundation School. So, as I said, normally we would have any questions at the end of sessions, but it's a really great opportunity when we have these live online events to ask questions as we go. And there is a chat box function where you can ask us questions. And we, as I said, we have staff who are able to answer questions as we go. And there'll be a point towards the end where we'll flag up any that we think are particularly relevant that everyone might want to hear the answer to. So let me first start by handing over to my colleague, Mr. Wilson, who will be running through the itinerary on day one. I should say before I hand over, that it's been a real challenge for everyone over the past couple of years. And we have found that no different in booking this trip. It seems as though every hurdle that could be thrown in the direction of this rewards trip has been thrown in the direction of the rewards trip. Obviously, we had COVID, which caused some uncertainty about going abroad in terms of whether or not students were going to be able to go in, whether or not staff were going to be able to go in. We then had issues with getting over the channel. As you may have heard in the news, P&O have been in the news for some, let's say, nefarious business with their staff and with their ferries, which meant that all of a sudden the availability of crossings became incredibly difficult to find. So we do currently have a range of departure times, which we are waiting to confirm because we are trying to get them a bit closer together if we can, but we are waiting again to see if P&O start sailing in the next month so that we'll be able to have more options for travel times. But that the channel crossing was another hurdle that was thrown our way. And obviously we have also more recently had the passport office delays, which have thrown some problems in the way, I guess, for some of our students. Now, we think we have solutions to all of these that should allow every single student that wants to go. And I will talk about them briefly later, but I do want to just let you know about that, which is why some of the issues, some of the times are yet to be confirmed. We do have crossings and we do have plans. We've got bookings in all of the activities that we are doing. However, we just need to confirm the times because of the uncertainty over the crossing time. So I will hand over now to my colleague, Mr. Wilson, who is going to take you through the itinerary.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jones, and good evening to all parents and students who are joining today. So firstly, we have our first day, and as Mr. Jones had said, we have a staggered departure from the school with our times to be confirmed. This is just a keynote to all parents. Please ensure that your child has eaten before arriving at school because the school do not provide lunch for the first day. It's going to be a long journey, and obviously they are going to be traveling via coach and via ferry before we actually get to the hotel itself. Next slide, please, Mr. Jones. So on the first day, some of the groups, they will have a brief stop at a World War I battlefield site, and they will be able to have a walk through the Delville Wood. This is a great opportunity for all students to stretch their legs, which will obviously help when they're going through the long journey itself. Next slide, please. We're going to arrive at the hotel around 7:30. Our hotel is called Hotel des Trois Hiboux, and that's at Parc Asterix. And obviously, depending on the arrival time of students, because we have our staggered times, they will have their dinner at the hotel and they're settling in. So the students will then go to their rooms, familiarize themselves with the hotel compound in general, and the do's and don'ts, which we will go through with them as teachers on the day. Day 2, we will then split into different groups, and they will actually be able to have a full tour of Paris, which include going up the Eiffel Tower and on a river cruise along the River Seine. And then they will have the opportunity to go to Montmartre as well, which is always a great opportunity for students. The last time we ran this trip, they spoke about how much they enjoyed the trek up the hill and actually having the opportunity to wander around a small town. So day 3, which is the things which students seem to love the most, is having the opportunity to spend a day in Parc Asterix. This is one of the largest theme parks in Europe. So our hotel is actually at the back of Parc Asterix. So the students get to, as soon as they've had their breakfast, get to go into the park. They usually have the first half an hour to an hour to themselves before the public go in to the park. And as we said before, they have the whole day to themselves. So if at any point they would like to leave the park and go back into the hotel, they will be able to do so. There are members of staff in the park and members of staff in the hotel to ensure the safety of all students. So day 4, we will go to Boulogne-sur-Mer, and they will have some time in the Old Town. And whilst they're in the Old Town, again, they will have the opportunity to wander around. There will be members of staff again to ensure that the students are behaving themselves and acting in an according manner. And a key thing is that all students need to understand that we will be departing the hotel at 10 a.m. This is on a Friday. We do understand that obviously they will be tired after the action-packed week that they've had, but again, we'll be departing the hotel at 10 a.m. on day 4. Now, because of our staggered times, which we will be getting to later on, some students will then be going to the Delville Wood site on the way back to school. And that will also be combined with the Nautical National Centre, which is the biggest aquarium in Europe. So again, the students will have an action-packed week, and I'm pretty sure by the time they get back, they will be tired out and full of stories for yourselves. So as we had staggered departures leaving to go to Paris, we will have staggered departures on the way back to Kingsdale. Again, more news will follow about this, getting closer to the trip, but just the same way we have staggered departures to Paris, we'll have staggered departures on the way back to Kingsdale, and all students will be arriving in the evening. Now, rooming and coaches. I'm sure you've heard all students talking about rooms recently. We had put out a link on Teams, and we had also emailed the form to students. So each room has one set of bunk beds and one set of twin beds, and we've made it very clear to all students that there are only allowed 4 students in a room. By now, as I've said, they should have chosen who they would like to spend their time with in these rooms. And we are currently in the process of sorting out the rooms to ensure that they have at least one of their choices. So this means that at least one of the students that they have selected to be in a room will be in a room with them. Our coaches will also be organized by these choices. So as soon as the rooms are sorted, the coach will also be sorted within the same day. And we plan on doing that within the next week and a half to 2 weeks. And finally, our evenings. So after the day and the students have actually eaten their dinner, we will be organizing events for the students to do in the evening. There's also quite a bit of outside space. So if the students need to run around during that time, then we will give them the opportunity to do so. We have a wide variety of staff coming, including PE staff. So there will be various activities for the students to do. Now, all the students need to be back in their rooms by 9 p.m. and lights out by 9:30. This is because they will have to get up early the next day to get on with our day and the activities that we will be doing. And then I will be handing back over to Mr. James.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wilson. Yeah, I would like to kind of reinforce a couple of points that Mr. Wilson has just said there, in particular with regards to rooming. What we're really keen to make the students aware of is this is a really great opportunity to forge links, maybe that with people that they won't necessarily have always spent all their time with. As I'm sure you can imagine, not every friendship group is divided exactly into four. Not every student will have four people that they'll, or three other people that they'll want to go with. So we really want to prepare the students for the possibility, if not the likelihood, that they may have to share with people that they're not entirely, you know, best friends with, that they don't necessarily know. And it's a really great opportunity for them to develop links with these people, develop bonds with these people, and develop friendships with other people. Because as I'm sure you know, no parent wants their child to feel left out. And what we don't want to happen is for there to be individual students who are really excited about going to Paris and then feel that they're not able to go in a room with people, or that their friendship group has left them out. So we're not necessarily going to be able to put all students into a group of four exactly as they want to do it, because it may be that we want to put people who maybe are maybe more on their own, or pairs who don't have another pair that they can go with together. So really, we want to lay the groundwork for that being a possibility, and talk to the students about how good it is to have that opportunity to make new friends and to have those experiences with new people as well. In terms of payments, we had a slight issue, partly due to the bank holiday, which is that the payment didn't go up until yesterday. So the second instalment is due this week. We will be running a report later next week to establish what payments we've received, and we will be sending out a reminder to anyone that has not made either or both of those payments. And as we've said in previous messages, please do let us know if there are any issues with making payments. You can email me at hls, which at kingsdale.southwark.sch.uk. That's head of lower school HLS. And I am happy to have a discussion about how the payments and how the payment plan will affect you. The last payment will be due in the first week of June, and I still believe it will be the same, about 120, but because of the timings and because of the final confirmations, I just need to confirm the final price. But as said in the original material, it's not going to be any more than around £130 for that final payment. So it will be roughly similar to the first two payments. We will send out that final price with the information pack, which will include everything that we've said today, including the next couple of slides, which are what to bring. Now, this is something that you may want to prepare for. The students may want to make sure that they have these things, or start packing indeed 2 months in advance. Range of clothes, including 3-day outfits, 2 lounging outfits, a hat or cap for the hot weather. Paris can be hot, although we are Brits, so we always prepare for everything, and we will ask our students to bring waterproof coats, as there will be some time where the students may be outside, both in Parc Astérix and in Paris. So if it rains, they will want to be prepared. They will also need to remember that they will be walking, so they should not all bring their high heels. If possible. Pajamas, obviously, for when they are in their bedrooms. Water bottles, we want to ensure that the students are fully hydrated, so making sure they have a reusable water bottle. Sun cream, toiletries, obviously. Some kind of entertainment when we are traveling, ideally a book. We don't want to see, although the students are allowed to bring their phones and will be allowed to use their phones, we don't want to see all the students glued to their phones for the entire time. We'll be trying to encourage them to do other things, to make the most of the opportunities that Paris and indeed the entire trip has for them. We've recommended them taking a pen and a notepad, that they might want to make any notes, or maybe a French phrase book for those of them or who may be studying French. Chargers for any of those electrical items that they might want to bring, and the European adapter plug, which is officially called, I'm reliably informed, a C/E adapter plug. That's the one with 2 circular prongs. If you are wondering which one that is, you will be able to find those. So it's all good electronic stores. What's not to do? This is a reminder to all students that they should not bring banned items. So if anything that they wouldn't be allowed in school is going to apply on this trip, if not slightly stricter. Remember, we'll be going through customs, we'll be going through borders, and things could potentially be searched. So please make sure that your student does not bring any banned items. The other thing not to do is to purchase banned items when there. So what we find is that in the souvenir stalls of Montmartre, or indeed in Boulogne-sur-Mer, you may find some all wonders of delight, such as firecrackers, penknives, BB guns, all available for sale to the open-walleted tourists. And students are obviously drawn in by these exotic items, and we do want to remind students that these are not allowed and will result in a sanction, both there and when they return to school. The other thing not to do, I want to remind them, and students can use their imagination as to what this would mean, but we want them to remember not to do things that they wouldn't do with their parents around. Obviously, when they are away on a school trip, we as teachers are loco imparentis. We are the parents in charge of them, and if they would not be happy to be doing something in their room with parents or carers standing over them, then they shouldn't be doing it, and we will be reminding them of this, but obviously we want you to lay that groundwork for us as well. We're recommending approximately £50 in euros for spending money. This is obviously a recommendation, and there is the possibility, and we will talk if this is going to be an issue for students. You can get in touch with me and we can arrange some support if that is necessary. Food is included for the vast majority of the trip. So packed lunches are provided for days 2 and 4. Dinner is provided 1, 2 and 3, and breakfast is on 2, 3 and 4. So the money will be required for souvenirs, snacks, lunch on day 1 and day 3, so that's on the way out and in Parc Astérix, and also food on the ferry in the evening on day 4, because the ferries are leaving in the first ferries leave at about 6 o'clock in the evening, so it may be a little later than they would normally eat, and it would have been quite a long day, so students may want to buy some food on the ferry on the way back. We won't have an opportunity to change into euros on the trip, so the students will need to make sure that they have euros on the trip. If you are concerned about the amount of money that your child will be holding, we will have group leaders in charge of groups of roughly 12 or so students, so about 3 rooms, and we will have discussions if you're concerned about your child holding on to this amount of money, about whether or not we can ask the group leaders, or indeed myself or Mr. Harding or anyone that's going on the trip, to look after it for students where you think that might be an issue. Another thing to lay the groundwork for is that, as always on a school trip where we're going away, food won't necessarily be the food that your child normally eats at home. And there won't be anywhere else to get food. They won't be able to order takeaways in. There will be no Deliveroo at the hotel. They can bring food with them, so snacks, etc. But what we'd love the students to do is to be open-minded and ready to eat the food. The food was really well reviewed the last time we went on this trip. There's options, there's things that they can choose from. So there will be. We don't think that it will be an issue. It wasn't an issue last time, but for fussy eaters, they may need to have this flagged up in advance. Health and safety, there'll be a full risk assessment taken. We've done this trip before. Registers will be taken by group leaders and reported to the trip leaders every time we get back on coaches and meet after a period of free time. There will be first aiders amongst the staff. We have comprehensive insurance that will look after the students if there is a medical need. Something that's really important to flag up, and we want everyone to be aware of this, is that there will be some times of remote supervision. So students won't always directly be supervised. They may be in an area where there is a teacher around, but they will be allowed to go off in groups and explore, or, you know, go to the souvenir stands, or if in the case of Parc Asterix, go around. So we really want that to be clear that this is what we call remote supervision. We'll be in an area, there will be members of staff at various different points, but the students will be in groups and they will be given a bit of independence. Now, if you're concerned about this because of worries about how your child will deal with this, then please do let us know, because we have enough staff on the trip that if this is a real problem, that we can have some students supervised. But we think it's a really good opportunity to put our faith in the students and give them that element of independence, and they really respond to it, we find. There will be a trip phone and a number of group leader phones that you can contact via Kingsdale. So you will always be able to get in touch with a member of staff if needed, and students will be given the trip phone number, so they will be able to get in touch with members of staff. Obviously, students need to ensure that they listen to staff and follow instructions at all time, especially with regards to kind of road safety, and in terms of staying in their rooms and making sure that they are not out of their rooms at points where they shouldn't be, or in other people's rooms.
Can I just come in there, Mr. Jones?
No problem, Mr. Harding. I thought that you would have come in earlier, because I know how much you are passionate about this trip.
Indeed, indeed. Just one thing, I'm really glad that Mr. Jones has stressed just the importance of students staying together in groups, and that there will be times when the students are remotely supervised. But equally, it's important to stress that this is a public hotel. We're not staying in a youth centre. We're not staying in a self-contained area. This is a hotel that will be open to the public. Now, Kingsdale will constitute the large majority of the people staying at the hotel, but it is nevertheless, I just want to stress that, belabor the point that the ground's open to members of the public. So it's really, really important. One of the things that we'll be enforcing very strictly with the students is that once we set a curfew, once we set the time when they need to be in their rooms, we mean that. So if they want to pop out and go around to visit their friends in the room next door, all the usual shenanigans that, you know, in 25 years of taking trips, I've become pretty experienced with, we will be, you know, I may have a smile on my face right now, but believe me, I'm afraid the consequences may be pretty dire for those students who choose to, come out of their rooms and try and go around the site, because the site is open to members of the public. So in effect, it would be like your child being out of the house when you are back in London, and I'm sure you wouldn't allow your child to be wandering the streets after dark. And equally in Paris, it's really, really important that students adhere to that principle. I'd go a little bit further than that, and I just want parents to be aware that the accommodation is truly fantastic, and we got rave reviews from it from colleagues who had been on previous trips and who had been on the trip we took for the first time to the current accommodation. They were very, very impressed by the quality of the accommodation. The kind of pictures that you've already seen of the Hotel Trois-Hiboux is genuinely reflective of the standard of the quality of the rooms. But those rooms on the ground floor do open up directly via a back entrance to the park. So it's essential that students go in and keep those doors locked at all times. Okay, that is for their own health and safety. Now, like I say, we will really reinforce this with the students when they're out and about, in much the same way as we will really reinforce the need to stay in groups. The best protection for children when we have these periods of remote supervision, as Mr. Jones has already said, is that they are together in groups, because no harm is going to come to them if they're in a group of 4 and they don't abandon their friends, or if they're in a group of 5 or 6, or however many it may be. But I just wanted to really affirm those expectations that we expect students during the curfew to stay. We will have a night patrol. We're going to take our own security. So we will have somebody patrolling the grounds. Now, I just want to ladle this on thick, if I haven't done enough already, that students who are out of their rooms run the risk of being sent home from the trip. It is that serious. We need to be able to rely on the students, and we will have the capacity we will have the kind of supervision ratios. We'll have upwards of 35 teachers going with us. So we'll have the kind of supervision ratios which will mean that should a child need to be sent home, we will do so. Okay, and we have done so in the past. We have sent children back from Kingsdale trips in the past. Okay, back to you, Mr. Jones.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harding. As I'm sure you can imagine, the medical information that you've completed is very important. We already have this from the expression of interest form that you completed, but please ensure that this is correct when we leave. So if there are any updates, if any medical information changes, please let us know. It's really not a problem. We can update our spreadsheet and we can just add that to our considerations when we are making the groups, when we explain to the group leaders what their requirements are. So please make sure that any updates come to us, and any prescribed medication needs to be handed to us, ideally in the days prior. We leave on a Tuesday, which means that on the Monday, it gives you an opportunity to send the student in with the medication, which means that there's not the, with all the stresses and the changes that will be happening and everything going on the day of leaving, it may be easier for you to give the medication in the day before, so that it's easier for us to log and make sure that it's in the right place. But please do make sure that we get that in advance, so that we are fully prepared and we know that we've got it. Now, you may get some information. You may get something where your child calls or texts. Please try and guide your child towards a teacher. As Mr. Harding said, there will be a significant number of staff on the trip, and there will be a group leader that's assigned to a small number of students who can look after the student, and there will always be a member of staff on duty at any point of the day or night. So please get in contact via the trip phone, or get the child to get in contact via the trip phone, or see a member of staff. Now, the COVID regulations. I mentioned this in the original documentation, but the COVID rules for travelling to France are still the same as they were, which is you do not need to test if you are fully vaccinated and you're over the age of 12, which all of our students will be. Now, you will need to present proof of vaccination to the transport company and potentially to border control. So we will have to have proof of vaccination. Now, I know that can come in the form of the NHS app, but if your child does not have a smartphone or similar, then you may need to get a certificate either sent by email or printed off that shows that your child is vaccinated. If your child is not vaccinated, they're still able to go. This was one of the key requirements that we double checked before we booked this trip. What they will need to do is present a negative result of a PCR test less than 72 hours old, or an antigen test less than 48 hours old prior to departure. So we leave on the Tuesday. So that means that 72 hours before we leave, the best idea would be to either get one late on the Saturday or Sunday or Monday. I think that's my maths being correct. So you can get those at a number of chemists. You can go and get PCR tests at chemists. And it says departure of the first flight, where the journey includes connection. That's just because I've copied it from We Are Getting the Ferry. It's because I've copied it from the French embassy. If your child has had COVID in the 6 months previous to our departure, then you can have a certificate of recovery as evidence that you are able to travel. So that needs to be more than 11 days, more than 11 days before we leave, and less than 6 months before we leave, if your child has had COVID recently. So those are the 3 ways in which you can get into France with COVID regulations. So you either need to be fully vaccinated, a PCR or antigen test, or you need a certificate of recovery, which is, as I said, a positive PCR more than 11 days and less than 6 months previously. Self-administered tests, so the lateral flows that we all got used to using, are not certified by an approved private test whose results are not certified, are not valid for travel. Okay, and the NHS will not carry out tests for the purposes of travel, so it does have to be through a private provider. The other obstacle that we found, passports. This is a reminder your child's passport should be less than 10 years old and have more than 3 months remaining. I know that everyone put their information in. There were a couple of people who were waiting to receive passports, and unfortunately, as we know, there have been some issues in the passport office. We think that there is a solution to this, which is applying for a group passport. So if you know that or if you are worried that you are waiting for a passport and that is not going to come, please let us know in the next couple of days, because we believe we will be applying for a group passport. We think there's probably going to be enough students to justify applying for a group passport, but it does take 6 weeks to process. So that's 6 weeks, which is less than the 10 weeks it takes to process a passport if they do it in the right amount of time. So it's likely that we will be able to get the group passport in. So please do let us know if you are worried about the passport arriving in time for your child, and we will apply for the group passport and they should still be able to go. I would say for COVID and passports, there may well be two different insurance issues that we need to contend with. COVID, we are covered if your child receives a positive COVID test in that PCR and then is therefore unable to go on the trip. It will be incredibly disappointing, obviously, but at least we have the security that the school's insurance does cover the cost of cancelled travel. We do not believe that passports will be covered by transport. However, if we are, depending on the number of students that are likely to have issues, and provided that we apply for the group passport, the school will be able to look at supporting anyone who loses out as a result of not getting a passport in time, provided the numbers are manageable. So please, as I said, please do let us know about passport worries, so that we can give you some information about how insurance and what the cover will be for yourself. Finally, your child's behaviour does matter, and it matters before we go. It matters from the point where we registered, and it matters ongoing. It is dependent on good behaviour that we are able to go on this trip, that the students are able to go on this trip. It is a rewards trip, and the vast majority of the students, the vast majority of the time, are incredibly well behaved and self-managing. However, if your child's behaviour deteriorates, their place could be rescinded, and this could include a single serious event. We've explained to the students what the requirements are of them to be able to go on the trip, and we are prepared to rescind places on the trip. Any students who are on the waiting list, and we still do have some students on the waiting list who would like to take people's places, could be put on the trip at the expense of a student whose behaviour is poor. As Mr. Harding said, if your child misbehaves seriously whilst on the trip, they could be sent home with a chaperone, and potentially, if this incurs costs, we could pass these on to parents. So please ensure that your child is fully aware of these requirements. Right, that is everything that we have on this information evening. We will be sending out a full information pack in the next week with the final costings, which will have everything that we talked about tonight written down so that you can use it for reference when packing and preparing. But are there any questions for any of my colleagues that think that they would be relevant for everyone to hear at this point?
Mr. Jones, I've got one. A couple of parents have asked about passports. Will the children be looking after them, or will they be taken off of them?
Can I get in?
Yeah, Mr. Harding.
Right, we will check them in advance, but French legislation is such that the students are required to have a piece of identification on them. Now, what we'd probably do, being pragmatic about it, is we won't ask the students to keep their passports on them at all times, because in the event of them being stopped by any French authorities, we'll be able to refer them to the member of staff. But we would not take many passports. There are obviously a lot of students going on this trip. We would be hauled over the coals, I think it's fair to say, by the Home Office were we, for whatever reason, to lose, have stolen that number of passports. So we are advised by the Home Office not to keep the passports. We actually think that it's an important part of the responsibility that students undertake when they go on these trips, and that the skills that they develop when they go on these trips, to become responsible for their items. If parents have deep concerns and they really think that their child, like me, is incredibly forgetful and liable to misplacing things, then I'm sure we would take each case on its merits. But as a matter of routine, we will not be taking the passports from the students, other than at the beginning to make sure that we've got them all on the coach. So we'll be checking them on the coach on entry, and then we'll take them in off the students, because it's much easier for us to show the authorities when we get stopped, when the coaches get stopped at the borders and customs. But like I say, we will not be keeping them for the duration of the trip. I hope that answers the questions.
Thanks, Mr. Harding. Just one other, I'm not sure who can answer it. The choosing of friends, where was that sent to, Mr. Jones or Mr. Harding or Mr. Wilson?
Mr. Wilson would be the best person to answer that.
So with the choosing of friends, I had uploaded a form to the Year 8 team on Microsoft Teams, and so far about 99% of the year group have actually responded. So I'm waiting on about 10 or 15 more responses. I also emailed it to all of the students' email address as well. And this morning, I also put a reminder on the Year 8 team to fill in the form for those of them who have not.
Thanks, Mr. Wilson.
Thanks, Mr. Wilson. I don't want to flag up the fact that you've just said 10 to 15 as 1%, and you're a maths teacher, but I won't bring that up any further. I have just flagged it up, obviously. Do we have any other questions that we think are relevant to everybody?
I've got one more for you. Allergies, how will they be catered for?
So we have taken in all the allergen information, and like I said, if there's anything that you think you might not have mentioned on the questionnaire that was sent round when the student was registered, and we will send all of this information to the various the main provider is the hotel, who provide our dinners, our breakfasts, and the packed lunches. So they will be fully aware, and the hotel are fully compliant with the allergy requirements. In terms of students, obviously, when they are buying their own food, they will be responsible for that. But in each group where we have the assigned group leader, each group leader will be aware of the individual medical and allergy requirements of the students in their group, and they will be able to, for example, if a child needs to have an EpiPen with them, we can have the group leader be aware of that, and if the child needs to use it, then obviously the group leader can support them in that. So the vast majority of the meals will be provided by a allergen compliant company, the hotel, and students will be responsible for some of their own purchases, but the staff supervising their group will be fully aware of the students who are allergic to various items.
Yeah, I would just advise that if any child has very, very serious allergies, including airborne allergies, please do make us aware of the severity of that, because we may need to make additional precautions in terms of the rooming and making sure that none of the other students bring anything that might compromise that child. We may need to give more explicit instructions to the hotel and make sure that any food that's provided is kept entirely separate. So yeah, if it's just the standard allergy with which most teachers are familiar, then we can deal with that on a day-to-day basis. But if it's a more severe or particularly virulent allergy, then please do let us know about that. I'm sure you will have indicated that in the medical information that's already been submitted.
Thanks, Mr. Harding. I think there is a few other questions, but Miss Evans answered most of them, but they were the most ones that were coming up more than the others. So yeah, and I would say if you've got any more questions, then contact the Heads of Learning.
Yeah, please do. If you would like further information, or if you want to elaborate on any of the questions that we've answered, I've put the email addresses, the Year 8 Hull at kingsdale.southwark.sch.uk and hls@kingsdale.southwark.sch.uk. In general, I think the Year 8 Hull one will be best for general queries about the trip, things like how the students are going to be supported, things like allergies. HLS is better if you have questions about the payment or the finance, or how you're going to support the students like that in the trip. Okay. So thank you very much, everyone, for coming. We're very excited to be able to do it. As much as it's sometimes over the past couple of months, we've been pulling our hair out and thinking, is anything else going to go wrong? But we are fully confident that it's going to be an amazing experience for both the staff and the students, and we're really looking forward to it. And thank you for your support, and thank you for coming tonight. And we really look forward to taking the students to Paris in June.